So in this video, I wanted to show you how I made this animation of the yin and yang logo. It rotates like this, and just the symbol itself is made with only nodes, including this background. It's just a gradient that I made. And my first step in making this, it only took, I think, 10 or 15 minutes to make this, but my first step in making it was adding in this empty image, and I have this slightly above my plane, which I ended up shading, and you'll see that they align really well, but not exactly. So my image, just my reference image, was not fully symmetrical. My shader is fully symmetrical. And I just used it basically as an overview for where to align my objects and how they should fit in space. But that's about it. I actually don't need it after I made this, these shapes, since the colors are really easy. Okay, so my first process was just to trace out these circles that I saw in these empties. So by the way, my opacity is set to 0.25 just at its tip, so you can see through the object instead of having it just over your plane. Traced out this circle, and I traced out another one just below it, and these meet at this point here in the middle. And from there, I added this whole tail to this circle, which gave me this little fish looking thing. And I'll explain how I made this tail part. So it's actually made by having this big circle, which shows me the overall shape that's kind of containing this symbol, and this subtracted shade. So this is actually just a value of 1 on the left, value of 0 on the right, and I subtracted this bottom circle, which is why it's important to trace them both out in the beginning. And that gives me this multiplied by this to find where they're overlapping, which ends up with this nice tail shape, which I then added with the circle to get this. And these align perfectly because I just used, I just made everything centered so they align perfectly. I didn't do the same for the bottom. I just duplicated this setup and rotated it by 180, and that gave me this bottom tail. I then changed the opacity so it's multiplied by 0.5. That just makes it easier to select it later using a compare node. So I'll explain how that worked. My setup for this was using a compare node to basically select each of these components. So that looked like this. I can select any one part of this. And that was a really useful workflow. All of these have different values. That's basically my workflow when it comes to coloring. It lets me select which colors go where and how I want to shade my objects. And the final result gives me this. And these colors were actually pretty simple. I kind of over-engineered them because I wanted them to be, well, I wanted them to be very flexible. So I can change the color of the white really easily. I can change the color of the black really easily. And I can change the color of the background using an HSV node. I'll switch it back to black. But the background can be changed. The saturation can be changed. The brightness can be changed. And this is just to make a gradient using x and y to the power of 2 added together. And that was basically my whole process. It was a lot of tracing out from an image and adding those colors in later. If you want to find out how I make other shapes, feel free to click any of the videos on screen now. I make all kinds of stuff. I upload every few days. I'm pretty spontaneous with my uploads. I do not have a schedule, but maybe I'll get one in the future. So I hope you guys learn from my process.